大家好，欢迎来到我的小博客。Hi, welcome to my channel. I took my HSK 6 back in 2013 before applying for a master's degree in a Chinese university, and I kind of always felt that HSK 6, which is the highest proficiency level, is so much not enough to call somebody proficient in Chinese. And I also get a lot of questions about whether I will be able to do this or that after I pass my HSK 6. So in this short video I will talk about my impressions about what you will actually be able to do, what your language skills will be after you get that desired HSK 6 certificate. Speaking freely, unlikely. First of all, if you focus on passing the exam while you study, and if the exam is your primary objective while you study Chinese, you don't even need to practice speaking because there is no speaking part on the HSK. And this is actually one of the reasons why the test needs a major reform. So unless you specifically practice your speaking skills, HSK 6 is by no means an indicator that you can express yourself freely in Chinese. From my personal experience, I can say that after passing HSK 6, I felt very comfortable with everyday communication, like introducing myself, buying stuff, talking about my country, my hobbies, my studies, and I was pretty comfortable talking about my area of expertise, which is education and language teaching, but at the same time I cannot say that I could express myself freely on any random topic. I just did not have enough vocabulary for that. Reading books? Yes, absolutely, you can read books after passing HSK 6. Contemporary Chinese literature with no historical context is okay, and translated books, say books translated from English into Chinese, are also okay. This was my first book that I read from cover to cover, fully in Chinese, and I read it while I was preparing for my HSK 6. It's a pretty famous story about a German guy who walked on foot all the way across China, and it's a fun story because he shares a lot of insights as he sees things and he meets different people. I think somewhere on YouTube there is a video, a time-lapse of the face of this guy as he walks, and you can see like how he gets all tanned and how his hair grows and he gets a beard. So it was a fun story. There was a lot of vocabulary about pain because his feet hurt like hell, but apart from that it was an easy story. There are no plot twists, so it was a good pick to start reading in Chinese, and I definitely recommend it. And generally speaking, translated books from your mother tongue or from English into Chinese are easier than those written by Chinese writers, because even if the language is Chinese, the logic of the sentence, the logic of the paragraph, the train of thought is still Western. So even if you don't understand some words, they become pretty clear from the context. I think it took me about 2 months to finish my first book in Chinese, but of course that depends on how much time you can devote to it daily or weekly. So yes, reading is fine after taking HSK 6. Watching Chinese movies and TV shows depends a lot on what kind of movies we are talking about, because you can start watching Friends in Chinese from day one and understand everything because you know every line of that show. I know I do. But let's say we're talking about series or shows or movies that you have not watched in your mother tongue. I think after passing HSK 6 I understood about half of what was said on those movies or TV shows without subtitles, and of course definitely more, like about 80–90% with subtitles. The problem here is that they speak so much differently, the speed is much faster, and they speak much less distinctly than the speakers on the test do. It's more about training your ear to understand different people talking, people with different personal characteristics of their speech. So let's say yes, you will be able to understand movies and TV shows, especially after you kind of get used to the manner of their speaking. Let's say by public speaking, I mean writing and delivering all kinds of speeches, presentations, reports maybe that you have to do while you study, for example, at a university. And I think that production, both written and oral, is very difficult. So I would have to say no, you would not be able to do that. after you pass your HSK 6 unless you prepare specifically beyond your test materials. Drafting a coherent speech is not something that you learn while preparing for the test, because the type of stories, the type of materials that you have on HSK 6 is more of a fiction story. So you have some kind of a story and you have a message after that story, and this is what they teach you to understand and to produce on your writing part. It teaches you a very metaphoric language, and of course public speaking requires a completely different type of language, a completely different vocabulary and a different structure of the text. So even after HSK 6 I still had to find a native to help me check my draft before I spoke about it, before I presented it to the public. As for translation, I will say yes, you will be able to translate written texts. As you prepare for the test, you read tons of materials, you read tons of texts, so you kind of get used to the Chinese sentence structure. And if you take a written translation from Chinese into your mother tongue, yes, I think you will be able to do it properly. But of course the speed will vary a lot and will depend a lot on how much you understand of the topic actually, yeah? But with the dictionary and enough time, you will be able to do it. And I will have to say no to oral interpretation, no consecutive interpretation, and definitely no simultaneous interpretation. And not just because these jobs require a specific set of skills, competences, yeah, it's a very hard profession, but simply because the language skills will not be enough, the vocabulary will not be enough, the listening skills will not be enough. Listening in the HSK is very standard, and I doubt you actually meet people who speak that way in real life. They don't teach you listening in real conditions, you know, when you have those background noises, when you have people speaking from different parts of China, and none of this is trained while you prepare for your HSK. And the vocabulary skills after HSK 6 are not enough to translate properly. So all in all, HSK 6 does not train you to speak and does not train you to listen in real conditions, and it also does not teach you the so-called registers, that is different styles of the language that you use in different circumstances. But the test does teach you to read and understand, to scan through big chunks of text. So basically everything that is related to reading is okay. You will be able to read fluently, you will be able to translate, but at the same time you will not be able to speak fluently, and most likely you will still be struggling with listening in real conditions. And so you will have to practice your speaking and listening separately if you want to be competent in that. Have you ever taken an HSK test, and do you think that your actual skills correspond to the level that you have? That was it from me today, and 谢谢大家耐心观看，下次再见，拜拜。